Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Gail,
I'm Sandra.
and you're listening to the No Taboo Woo Woo Show
Woo
episode.
woo! Episode one.
I'm
We
just
are
laughing.
both admittedly a little bit nervous. And before we started the recording, we sat and set our intention for this podcast and for the listeners, you lovely people, wherever you are in the world, we welcome you in. We've been talking about this for a long time,
We
over a
have.
year.
Hmm.
And it is come the time we sat and said it's time to record after being chatting here for like a couple of hours. And it's just really good to finally get started and to actually create the space that we've envisioned and that we've talked about and bring it into fruition. And today we have got so much that we want to share with you. We're going to talk about who we are
Yep.
because as it stands, we might be strangers if you don't follow Gail or I on social media. And we're going to talk about how we met because all of that has led us here today. And it has been a really beautiful journey that I'll not get into right this second, but it's really inspiring, I feel, even looking back on our relationship, how we met and how our friendship has really blossomed, and
Yep.
it's been so cool. And to do this with Gail, I'm really excited, really excited. So
Me too.
nerves aside, we'll share about how we met. We will talk a bit about our journeys and what actually led to us meeting in the first place almost 5 years ago now. And yeah, how we got started, which is really cool, and what you can expect from this whole podcast journey that we're embarking on today on this beautiful sunny October day. It is the 27th. The clocks have just gone back, so we've had an extra hour of rest.
I know.
And I am currently, if you're watching this on video format on YouTube, you will see that I am in a van. I live in a camper van. I've been doing that since August 2023, so it's been over a year now, coming into the colder weather. And this is one of my favorite times of year. Autumn is so beautiful. I'm currently in just outside Peebles, a place called Traquair, where there's a beautiful house and grounds that you can walk around. I've not been out yet today, but the leaves are stunning. You can see some of them in the video behind me, and it's just a really lovely place to be. And it feels very peaceful despite all the people coming and going around. You might hear
Thank
them in the
you.
background, but that's just part of this life that
Hmm.
I'm really excited to share with everybody. So we are going to share what you can expect from this podcast and a little bit more about our intentions for what is to come. But I feel like now is time to get started because I could blabber on about all of these little things. And so, Gail, why don't you lead this one and start about why we're here and met?
So, how did we meet? So we met. I was looking this up. I think it was February. Maybe it was May. I can't remember. I found it. We met on a Reiki level one training course, um, in Edinburgh, and we just clicked. There was a third person on our training
There's four
course.
of us.
No, well, there's the trainer, and then there was me, you, and then the girl whose name I can't remember.
Ah, yeah. We
She
had
was
a
from,
WhatsApp group. And I
yeah,
do sometimes I wonder what she's doing
she
and where
was
she's
from
at, if she's
Dundee.
practicing
Yeah.
or yeah.
Um, yeah, she was very cool, very cool vibes. Um, so we met on doing Reiki level one, which our second episode is we have earmarked to be all about Reiki, so we'll maybe not get too much into what called us into Reiki and stuff, but let's just say we were there. And yeah, we just had this little WhatsApp group and we just kept connected, caught up, and it was one of those things where I'm sure everybody's got these friendships where when you meet up or you chat or you connect, suddenly you're like, holy crap, that's been 5 hours.
No, time just disappears,
It
doesn't
does.
it?
Time just disappears. And then I suppose we realized there was there was we shared more than just an interest in Reiki, and we have an interest in like a lot of all things kind of woo woo. And this podcast, I think, was born out of, so Sandra came and stayed with me for a bit last year, as part of her journey in embarking onto van life. And it was amazing because we got to talk about all this stuff every single day. And then we were
Proper
like, this would
roomies.
be a great podcast. And I suppose the intention is like the fact that it's the No Taboo Woo Woo show is like you know, we don't have all the answers, but actually we're passionate about this journey and the tools that can be available, but also the conversations that we have and the suggestions that we'll have for each other and the wisdom that we share. And we just thought it might be helpful for other people who might be on a similar journey and who might find value in what we're talking about. Equally, they might not agree with us, or we might not agree with each other on some of the tools. Um, and I think we're both excited about what we might learn on this. It's not just about,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
Um,
we don't know it all.
no, we don't. And we have a nice ideas log already of some things that we want to talk about, but also things that we might want to try out and bring that we've never done. And
Yeah.
also, I
What?
think because we've got different experiences, is some things might work for you that don't work for me, or vice versa, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
to open our minds.
Yeah. And
Um,
that could lead us into one of the ideas that Gail had for this podcast, which I am so on board with and I absolutely love, is a we'll go first.
mhm,
So both of us love trying new things. We love experiencing, we love learning, and even more so in the spiritual,
yeah,
I'd say. Like we've really started branching out over the last couple of years, especially and learning alternative
yeah,
ways of like exploring our spirituality and finding these different perspectives and all these different things because there's so much out there. And that was one thing, this is where the conversation segues, is that's one thing that I really found at the start of my spiritual journey. I wasn't on social media at the time. The only app that I used was YouTube. I wasn't on TikTok or Instagram, and I didn't have any sort of community. So much of what I learned was through my own journey and what I discovered through the path of just following my intuition and what I was
mm,
led to. And now I'm at this point where it's like I've got a foundation within that, within my spirituality that is something that I can expand on. And I'm really curious about so much more now. So, like the conversations that you and I have, where we're like, oh, have you heard about this? Or have you heard about like, talking about like past life regressions and, all these different things. There's so
yeah,
much that both of us are really interested in exploring. And this idea when you came up with it about we'll go first, I love that because we're both really open, we're both really up for trying
yeah.
something new. So if you're listening and there's something that you've thought to yourself, I'm really interested in that, but I feel a little bit like, I don't know, it's a bit out there, it's a bit woo woo, we'll go first because
100%.
we're up for it and we get to come back and then share that experience and that journey with you.
Hmm.
And big part for me when setting the intention for this podcast was I really want it to feel like you as a listener are coming along the journey with us. It's not we're here with all of the answers and we're the know-it-alls. We are here learning just as you are. And
Mm.
everybody has something new to bring. And I'm really excited about the community that we're going to build here.
Yeah.
And I think that our friendship and the foundation that we have is great to create that with and build
Yeah,
upon. So the we'll go first thing I'm really excited about. So if anybody has any ideas, throw them our way. We will
absolutely.
share in the show notes how you can get in touch with us with that. And then we'll come back and we'll say we tried this thing and we'll give an honest review. It'll
Yeah.
be like TripAdvisor, but but in video and voice format. And yeah, and you can let us know your feedback on it as well, and how you found the episodes, because we
Yeah.
want it to be more interactive. We want to get to know you just like you're getting to know us, because this space is going to be somewhere that we want to be a safe space, not just for us, but for you too, to be open and vulnerable. And I'll be honest, that feels uncomfortable for me sometimes, as somebody who has done a lot of work around the throat chakra and speaking my truth and sharing authentically myself and my own journey, because it's not all been rosy, guys. It's not all been rosy. Gail knows a lot of it. And there's lots of it that have been a bit of a shit show. And all of it shapes us into who we are. But um, that is something that I'm very mindful of when it comes to being on here. And that's what one of the things that I loved most about the idea of a podcast was that it was a space where I can speak with someone in a space that we create that feels safe, that someone that I feel safe with, that I can just authentically be myself. And something that I've found on my journey on social media, for example, is that it's really been stepping out of my comfort zone. And it's at the beginning, it was like a tiptoeing into that and being seen and heard in a way that I'd never been before. And this feels like an expansion of that, where I'm in this space and it's conversational. So you're going to hear much more than you would get from a 1 minute video on TikTok. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, because you're getting the real us.
Mm.
This is us and
This
this
is
is
a
life. And that feels raw and vulnerable for me anyway. Does it for you?
yeah. Yeah, it does. And I think, there's, I've got friends from all walks of life, and there's some people that I'll chat to certain aspects of the quote unquote woo-woo with, and there's some people that are just not interested and closed off. And I think creating a podcast is to bring a bit more consciousness around the conversation and
Yes.
realizing that
Yes.
so many, like when we were doing our prep, we were talking about like kind of what constitutes woo-woo. And actually, a lot of people don't realize that some of the things that you might be doing unconsciously might, for some people, be in the woo-woo bucket.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just about like, part of it's like how we navigate through life. And actually, the more we've sort of leaned on some of these tools, is the easier it's become for us, or it's supported us with healing. And that could be physical healing or emotional or mental.
Yeah.
Um, and also, it's just yeah, I think it's just around sort of trying to break down some of those barriers and recognizing that actually people like having this conversation. And people they might come in for, because they might be interested, for example, in Reiki or whatever it is, one of our future episodes, and then they actually stay for the journey and have, they're like suddenly like, oh, I'd never thought about X, and then they try it. And I suppose as we'll get on to, like when people learn about our journeys and who we are a bit more, you'll realize that, we're not, as my dad would have said, hippy dippy types. That's what he said last night to me about something. I was just
Does he?
like, yeah, I was like,
That's very timely.
it is. And I suppose, it's like it's recognizing that, you can live in in you can have a foot in both realms, I suppose, is probably a better way of explaining, deciding it. It's because sometimes there's a perception that these tools are reserved for people who are, you know, wearing sandals all year round and living in a tent,
Yeah.
um,
And I think that that is a really important point, because as we progress in this time, so many people are awakening. I,
mm,
I went through like my major spiritual awakening in 2020, the beginning of 2020, round about when we were doing Reiki. That really fast tracked my spiritual journey. And I think that what I really recognized through that is that spirituality isn't just the clothes that you wear, it's not
yeah.
how you appear to people on the outside. Spirituality is a way of life, it's how you live.
Yeah.
That's been one of the biggest things for me over the last few years to really learn, is like It's getting back to the truth of who you really are underneath all the layers of shit that you've accumulated in your life.
Yeah.
And that is the core of it, essentially.
Yeah.
And
It's funny
actually,
because yeah, because I wouldn't say, like, I don't think I've had what, like, I wouldn't call, like, I don't think I've had a spiritual awakening in the sense of, like, certainly listening to the experience you went through. And,
mm,
weirdly, that's why I think this probably, like, this is a good place for people who are curious because I suppose, like, I describe it as I think you're further on the journey, if you like, and things that have happened to you in that awakening that I suppose like I learn from, and then there's things maybe I've done that you've not done. And I think
hey,
it's just it's a place for people to realize that you don't have to have had a spiritual awakening to use spiritual tools or to lean on things or to
yes,
explore.
yeah,
And who's to say? I mean, yeah, it'd be cool if I had a proper spiritual awakening at some point in my life, but if I don't, like, actually all of these tools and things have a place in my life. And if I think about the things I'm curious about and following the things I'm curious about, inevitably more of these things are on in that realm.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And that's the thing. I think a big
Mm.
part of it is not judging your own
No.
experience and your own journey because everybody's is
Yeah.
different. Everybody's is
Um,
different. Mine was like, I'll not get too much into it in this episode because we're just we're just starting out. But I mean, it was major dark nights of the soul. And if you've not heard that term, it's literally being faced with all of the shit and all of the shadow and lots of things from the past coming up to the surface. And it was like, I was like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't feel like spirituality. This feels like going to hell and back. Why is this happening? These are things that I thought I'd healed and that I'd already moved through, and things from a long time ago that were coming back up. And so, regardless of what your journey's been to date, it's like, it's not judging it. I think that's a
no.
huge part of it, is being like, everybody's journey is so unique. And maybe you've gone through something like a dark night of the soul, or maybe it's been that you have been more like Gail, where it's been like a progression, like a natural flow. Like that's how I've perceived your journey, as being like you've followed your curiosity. And actually, there's been like situations like with Reiki where there have been like universal shifts in terms of like who you meet on the
Yeah.
journey, and like the things that just start to happen, like the synchronicities that we talk about a lot, and then what comes from that. And I think that there's every experience is valid.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, I often
100%
think of
disagree
myself
with
as
it.
like,
Yeah, sorry, on you go.
I was just going to say it, I often think of myself as like a bit of a bridge, because I feel in the spiritual realm, but I also feel like I'm somebody that people can relate to.
Mm,
Because when I meet people, I love the deep chats. I don't want to know like the surface level shit. I want to know your soul. I want to know
hmm.
you, who you are at your core. And I think that that's a big thing for me, is like combining the spirituality with being a human. I talk about a lot about being a spiritual being, having a human experience.
Mm,
And that's what I think that my perception, what I used to have, my perception of people who were quote unquote spiritual, was that they were like way up in the ethers, and everything was all like
yeah.
butterflies and rainbows,
Ooh.
and it was all love and light. And actually, the spiritual journey is recognizing that we're all light and shadow, and the
Yeah.
shadow is not always the prettiest place to be.
No.
And yes, love and light is important, and coming back to love as a frequency, but the highest frequency of all is authenticity. And how can we be authentic without recognizing that we are not perfect as
Mm,
human beings, that we have a shadow? That
yeah.
shadow exists within all of us, and it's just the extent that the shadow you know, is shown to the world. Um, so yeah, it's, it's so cool. There's so much that we will dive into, like
Absolutely.
as
I
this
was just
podcast
laughing because as you were
progresses. And
talking, I was like, I've just added spiritual awakenings onto our ideas log. Um, one thing that we will be doing each episode, so there's a one tool that Sandra and I both use a lot is cards. Now that might be tarot cards or oracle cards. Um and we figured since it's something that we use every day, I
Yeah.
certainly use cards every day in my life, that it would be cool to pull a card for each episode and um, also because it gives us an excuse to get the decks out.
Get the decks
Get
out.
the decks out.
Get your
Uh,
decks out for the
I know
lads.
I have such an addiction to like tarot and oracle decks. I have to rein my neck in a wee bit
I know I
sometimes.
often remind myself though, I'm like, Sandra, it used to be like alcohol and, searching for validation and connections with men. And this is probably a much healthier way to, if we're talking about addictions,
Yeah,
the tarot and oracle decks are,
I
you know,
know.
pretty good for the soul.
Absolutely.
And I love that Gail and I also have different decks.
Yes.
So when we were living together, it was really cool because I got to play around with the Gail's decks and we like pull messages for each other and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's something that like is part of our friendship that we can also bring in and share with you guys. So
Yeah. And it's such, so like, and we will do an episode actually around tarot and oracle in more depth. But I think, because sometimes people are like, you know, some people think of it as like predictions and so on. But, I think there's definitely things, the cards that picks up on, I suppose, what do I believe? It's like, it picks up on like an energy and they're a divination tool. So it's an opportunity to ask yourself some questions and to probe a little further. I mean, I know that we quite often ask the card for what's going to happen in a
yeah,
particular
give us some
situation,
guidance. Yeah,
or actions that you can take. But at the end of the day, with all of this, you're a human being and you have free will and you have choice and you can choose to do something
100%.
or you can choose not to do something. And how I use cards is it can often like, and in fact, Sandra did a reading for me a few weeks ago where it sort of indirectly challenged my thinking on a particular outcome that I'd sort of set my mind on, and then I was like, oh, maybe there's a different perspective. Which then actually gave me a really rich conversation in one of my other relationships. And sorry, this is Hamish is making a
Hamish is like, oh, we're talking, are we?
yeah.
Hamish is the chattiest dog I think I've ever met. He is so
Um,
adorable.
he is very cute, but he
And he's
likes
like,
to
I want in on the action. There he is. Oh,
oh,
hi.
hi.
Oh, if you can't see him, he's just the cutest little bundle of fluff.
Yeah,
Oh, look at Hamish.
I
He's so
know.
lovely.
It's very cute.
It,
Do you want to see what
he's
the
very
cards are?
vocal. So
So
yeah, Gail, before we started, Gail pulled some cards so that you missed
yeah,
out on the shuffling part. But
so there's a deck that in fact I think I bought it when you were here last year and it's called
yeah,
the Nifty
I
Oracle
absolutely love this deck.
and
I
it's
love it.
very cool. It's a bit like I mean it enjoys a swear word and it just sometimes tells it as it is. And weirdly it's a deck that I find is often really spot on.
Yeah,
Um
it's really to the point, and that's what I like about that for an Oracle deck because a lot of the Oracle decks can be a little bit fluffy. I find sometimes some of the
yeah.
ones that I've experienced have been a little bit on the fluffy side, whereas I feel like you and I are very direct people, and
Mm.
this is like it cuts through the bullshit.
Yeah, so weirdly, two cards popped out for this one. Thinking about the context of guidance for everyone. So if you're listening, and I mean, you could be listening to this in 5 years' time, this might still be a relevant message for you. So there's two cards that came out. The first one, I'll hold them up to the camera in case you are watching, is Dragon Load of Dense Shit, which is time for an energy clearing.
Which is
And
so interesting with us both doing Reiki. Love that.
I know. And I think as well, like, because I suppose to me, it speaks a little bit to the nerves, I suppose, like we were having before we pressed record.
Yeah.
Hamish. I'm not going to read out everything that's in the little booklet on this one, but this comes with questions to ask yourself and some affirmations. But I always think the questions are quite interesting when we think about this, if it's about an energy clearing, there's lots of things you can do on that. But the questions would be, what work do I need to do safely and lovingly to clear my soul? Do I need to ask someone else for help? And how do I break from the destructive pattern of becoming fully loaded with shit until I explode? Which weirdly, I suppose, in some of the conversations that we were having just before that we start pressed record, and I think what you'll start to see or hear as we progress, a lot of it is, we carry so much crap around with us, and
Yeah,
like if you don't take the opportunity to get rid of it, it just becomes a really heavy burden.
yeah.
Um, the second card that popped out was it's a shitting rainbows kind of day. And it was
Woo!
like about releasing guilt. And I think it's quite interesting they came out together. And maybe it's actually an inquiry, it's sort of challenging you to say maybe the stuff that you need to get rid of in the energy clearing is releasing the guilt. And in terms of this is a card about self-care.
Mm,
Um, which weirdly, actually, and I think, if I think this podcast is a bit about self-care for you guys listening, but also for us, because it's taking time out to talk about stuff that brings us joy. It helps us
yeah.
talk through some stuff. Um, and then weirdly, I think as much as we pulled these cards for the podcast, is a lot of this is referencing the conversation we were having before, because the questions around what guilt is holding me back and do I need to remove it? What relationship do I have guilt with? And what self-care can I bring to my day without any guilt attached? Um, and when we talk about like, some of the stuff we want to talk about on this podcast is actually, it's not just like, oh, how can Reiki help you? Or how can tarot help
Yeah.
you? But actually, this is a bit about our lives and we talk about more sort of like bigger picture things. So I was
And
talking
also
about
personal
friendships and
stuff.
relationships, and actually
Mm,
this is where some of this comes in. And so then you start thinking, right, well, actually these oracle cards are going to have given me some real questions to think about in terms of some of my relationships, which actually then helps you release some stuff, helps you heal some stuff, and therefore helps you move forward and become more of the person that you want to become, which ultimately, like, that's all what some of this is about. It's not, you can, it's not just about the window dressing or the thing, it's like actually doing the thing.
and actually, I think that that is, I really picked up on the self-care that you
Mm.
said in that. And it's really interesting that you bring that up, like in context with those cards, because we often, like, self-care is often portrayed as something that's like, we go and get pampered, we go for a spa day or take a bath or whatever. Self-care is also allowing yourself to let go of the shit that no longer serves you. That is one of the biggest acts of self-love, is releasing the things that no longer serve you.
Yeah.
And that can be physical things, or it
Although
can
I cleared
be
out all those books
you
yesterday.
cleared out all your books and you must have had at least a couple of dozen books
Oh
in that
yeah, I
pile of
mean the
stuff.
bag was so heavy, but it's
But that's it. That is exactly it. It's like the physical weight. We often don't think
yeah,
of the energetic weight, the spiritual weight that physical stuff can also
mm,
hold on our spirit. Like it
yeah,
can weigh you down when you're holding on to so much that
mm-hmm.
you just don't need to have anymore. But it's also as
Absolutely.
well the inner stuff. Um, the
Yeah.
idea is the attachments to parts of who you were in the
Mm,
past, who
mm,
other people expected you to be. And that, I think, when you talk about guilt, that's something for me, coming back to what I was saying about speaking your truth, is there's a lot of people that are not going to like your truth. There's
no.
a lot of people that will listen that will not like my truth.
Mm,
And, when you think about in relation to your personal relationships, it can be quite confronting for
yeah.
people to hear things, especially on the kind of level that we are going to get into in these episodes, that it might be things that people don't like to hear, but actually it's all shared with love and with
Yeah.
good intentions. And it's really an act of self-love to speak your truth. It
So
really
what
is.
tools
And
then? I know this is probably getting into it, but I feel like this would be a good point to ask the question then. So like if you're like, I need to really speak my truth here, what tools would you lean on in order to do that? Like, I know that I think there's quite a also a gender thing here. Like, I think
Yeah,
often women I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed people pleaser around stuff, so sometimes I can feel it can be quite overwhelming and tricky for me to feel like I'm going to speak my truth, and I don't want to feel like I'm hurting people or pissing people off, so I just absorb it and then don't do it.
yeah.
So, like, if people were going to take something away, like, what tools would you do? Like, how could you, what tips would you give someone who's thinking like, I really need to have an honest conversation about something, or be more boundaried, or say no to something, but they're really struggling? What tools would you lean on to help you?
I think before I get into the tools, I think the first thing to take into account is really taking a moment with yourself to acknowledge the fact that you sharing your truth and setting a healthy boundary that is protecting your well-being, whether that's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, that is protecting yourself, protecting, safeguarding your own energy and your own state of mind,
Mm,
recognizing that that in itself is an act of self-love. And that when we come back to people pleasing, also in that camp of recovering people pleaser, is to acknowledge that self love is just as important as the love that you give to other people. It's actually the most, I talk about this a lot on social media, that the most important relationship that you'll ever have is with yourself.
mm-hmm,
And if you keep on showing up in a way that is pleasing other people, that is not meeting your own needs and is not looking after yourself, you're betraying yourself.
mm-hmm,
And that is something that, in taking radical responsibility over yourself and your life, to sit down and say, this boundary is going to be good for me. It's out of my hands how it's received by other people, but I'm
mm-hmm,
doing this for me. And coming back to that, even when it comes to having that conversation, because it's not easy when you're sitting with someone that you care about and you love, and you've shown up in ways that you've overgiven in
mm-hmm,
situations, or you've showed up in a way that you recognize that you're not that person anymore, you've grown. To sit there, it can be uncomfortable, but hand on heart, taking a moment to be like, this is for me. I'm doing this for myself because
mm-hmm,
I am worthy of self love and I'm worthy of respect and I am worthy of other people showing up for me in the way that I show up for them. When you've got that intention in your heart and you know that your intentions are pure, that's all that matters when it comes down to it.
mm-hmm,
When it comes to tools that you can use to support you, there's lots of things that I lean on, things like crystals. You know, a
mm-hmm.
crystal for somebody that lives in a van. I've a lot of
Oh, wait till we get into the
crystals.
crystal episode.
Oh, the crystal episode, I can't wait. I'll be like, look what I have. It'll be like show and tell. I'll be like, everybody go to YouTube and watch us.
Uh-huh.
Um, but ones that are good for the throat chakra and for the heart, like rose quartz is such a good staple to have in your crystal collection because it's the crystal of unconditional love. It's got a really nurturing energy about it. So that's a good one to have. But also things like lapis lazuli, the blue crystals, blue is the throat chakra. So even like a blue calcite would be good. Um, crazy or blue lace agate as well is another one. There's so many different crystals that you could use. Also, another one that might not seem logical, but protection stone. So, like if you're going into a conversation that is really challenging and there's going to be some heavy or negative energy there, something like a black tourmaline would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying that on you, I have a black onyx that is a pendant that I interchange with this one, which is my little moon crescent that I love. I love. But um, I wear my that black pendant because it helps to absorb the negative energy. So if I'm going into a social situation, for example, where I don't know what the energy is going to be like, especially somewhere like where like people are drinking and stuff like that, or if I'm having a difficult conversation, it's a good one to have on. But it doesn't need to be jewelry. You can have it in your
Yeah.
pocket. You can tuck it in your bra. You can do whatever you want with your crystal. But crystals would be great. Another thing, if you want to lean on something like tarot or oracle to ask for guidance, You know, like when I've talked to Gail before in the past, when it comes to tarot, it's all in the questions that you ask.
Mm,
The guidance that you'll get will be as good and to the point as the questions that you ask. So, what's your intention? You know, is it how can I show up in a way that is self-loving today? Or what is the energy that I need to bring to this conversation for the best possible outcome?
mhm,
You know, asking a question like that. Another tool that I use every day is journaling. So, journaling about how you're feeling about a situation, because sometimes we take things into conversations, or, you know, if we're going to be setting a boundary with someone, we bring things that we don't necessarily need to talk about in that moment. And it can be a lot of heaviness that can come up.
yeah,
And actually, when we're setting boundaries, it's like, it's the outcome that we want to keep in mind. What is the outcome? Why are we doing this? It's not so much a he said, she said kind of thing. That's not what we want to get into when we're setting boundaries and when we're speaking our truth. We want to show up in a way that is like, this is why I'm doing this. And we don't need to go through all of the nitty gritty and all of the things. It comes down to the core of what it's all about. So journaling on it beforehand and actually going through brain dumping. What is it that you really want to say? Something I know that you do a lot, Gail, and I've done in the past as well, is writing a letter.
mm.
You know, the
Enjoy a
things
letter,
that, yeah, love a
burning it.
letter. And that might be something for you to share, like talking about your experience of writing a letter.
Yeah, I quite often I've done it for about past relationships, but I've also done it with a work context. So I used to work in financial services, so I do occasionally dabble back in. However, I felt like I was being gaslit by an old boss, which was really odd. Um,
Mm.
but and as much as I'd like to have gone in and had a meeting with her and told her she was a fucking bitch, is actually what I really wanted to say to her. Um, I didn't actually do that because I didn't want
That's
to
where the
be
letter comes in
tired.
handy. It helps quiet that little
It did.
voice
And I
or
just
that loud voice.
Yeah, and so it was actually really helpful, and I just wrote her a letter of everything that I really wanted to say, and also like it ended up being a sort of I suppose a dialogue in my head, and then I am a fan of I fold it up and then I burn it, and like that helps the release energy. So you've not just it's also a way to sort of visually see the release. It's not just the writing the letter on the piece of paper. It's the actual burning it, and it kind of just you watch it burn, and then it's like it doesn't have any power over you anymore. Um,
Mm.
I've given suggestion to people before. I did it about with some stuff with my ex-husband. Not that was an acrimonious relationship or anything, but it was just a way for me to get my head together, I suppose, because sometimes you feel like even with any sort of relationship, it's things might be fine, but we all have feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings are valid to you, so um
Is it
sometimes
something that you found helped bring closure to
yeah,
situations? Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes like if I was wanting to be so thinking about sort of closing off some of that people pleasing or the self-care around being boundaried, sometimes writing that out can also give you the opportunity to feel like you've written your perspective. So even though if you think that actually if if you're dealing with somebody who's just very closed off and not listening, but you want to set your stall out and be boundaried, to me, it allows you the opportunity to feel like you've said your piece, even if the person hasn't actually received it or heard it. And
And
sometimes
that's
that's
the
the
thing to
thing that
remember
gives you
is,
the inner guidance, inner peace. Yeah.
yeah, because you don't know how someone's going to receive things.
Mhm.
And this is something from my own experience. Let us know if you experience this too, if you're listening, is that you will kind of try and anticipate how a conversation's
Mhm.
go. And you run through all the different ways of how a conversation can go. And you're never going to know until you show up.
Yeah.
And I think that the letter thing's really good because it kind of helps to release a bit of that.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's the things that, you know, I always wanted to say this, but I know that this is not the healthiest thing maybe to bring into this conversation for the outcome that I want. And to actually just reflect on it a little bit more and be like,
yeah,
okay,
sometimes you just have to recognize that you might never get the opportunity to verbally tell someone something, and but it allows you to kind of get it out your head. It's off your chest. It's not, hopefully then wouldn't preoccupy you as much. Um, but equally thinking, when it been in like work context and like, management situations, like even just like if you're going into a conversation that, your difficult conversation could be about asking for a promotion or a pay rise at work. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like there's a big conflict or something, but that's about,
Mm,
you're setting out your boundaries, or saying that you're worth something. And it's like, I think
mm,
Sandra's point around like what is the outcome that you're looking for, and that understanding that will help you stay focused. And I
yeah,
remember going on a management course around, and in fact, weirdly, we were talking about this the other week around that you can't control how someone's going to respond, but the trick is to stay neutral in how you're dealing with things in that conversation. So, like, if somebody gets really angry and is like if you mirror that anger, it's this conversation's going nowhere. And sometimes you have to realize that people need to go through a bit of an emotional cycle before they can actually come back and calibrate to the neutral that you're in. And
yeah,
the polar opposite is actually like kind of people then, instead of getting angry, will just be like say nothing, but you can feel something's going on. And so it's just remembering that's their response. You need to let them just have it, but I think if you're some of that's then just about planning how it's going to go. I think, if it's specifically if it's something where you're trying to be boundaried and every other time previously you've never been boundaried, you're showing
yeah,
differently. So people will might respond in a different way because it's not what they're expecting
yeah,
from you.
yeah. And I think on that, and also what you were saying about when we started this conversation was about like when you're showing up, it's being mindful that what you're sharing is your experience and your experience is valid. So when it comes to speaking your truth, and also in the context of like this podcast, and
Sandra, somebody's at the door. Sorry.
so when we talk about our,
Sorry. I was like ding dong for the door.
that's
And
okay.
Hamish is going mental. So, but this is the human, this is us being human, right? And this is us being authentically us, where
Yeah,
shit
shit
happens.
happens.
We're not
We
in a
acknowledge
recording
it.
studio. We are in our homes. One's a
Yeah,
van, one's a house. And but this is just, this is kind of what's happened. This is natural. And this is why hopefully
totally.
you as the listener will enjoy, because we're just two people from Scotland having a chat about
Exactly.
some woo-woo stuff. And
The
hopefully you're
woo-woo
going to
stuff.
get some really good tips and hints and insights into what people do, things that are open. And that's for you to use, which, I'm keen to learn about stuff as well, which is why we probably ask each other questions on things too.
Yeah, totally. And it comes back to like anyone who's listening, it's like, how does this relate to like the conversations that we're having? How does that relate to you and what you're going through in your life and the experiences that you have? Because maybe it's offering a different perspective and something that flips the script or like gives you a bit of a
Yeah.
breakthrough with something and leads to a deeper understanding of yourself, which would be really cool.
Yeah,
That was an
absolutely.
outcome.
And I mean, who can't say they've never people pleased in their life, right?
Well, exactly.
I mean,
I would
if
like
you're,
to hear from someone who has never people pleased in their life. Can you get in touch?
I'm not sure this is the
Teach
podcast
us your
for them,
ways.
Sandra, to
Well,
be fair.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like that whole like the contrast, the extreme contrast is people with the narcissistic tendencies, which
Yeah.
I suppose we all have to a degree, but it's the extreme case of the narcissist and people pleaser
Yeah.
dynamic, or the narcissist
And I
empath
think,
dynamic, which again you can get into
yeah,
in another episode. But um, yeah, I
it's
think
just I
it's like
think about like being really clear on where your boundaries are. And that's something that I have to say, like like that you really have shown me has been a mirror for me. Like I can be really bad at boundaries and like saying yes to things when I don't have the energy for it. And I kind of can feel really bad. I don't want people to feel like I've let them down. And so for me, it's like I'm proper like baby steps in some of that space. There's some things where I'm like hard no, and I suppose that's maybe a good tip if you can relate to me a little bit. It's more around like where are the things that you're a hard no on? Because that's where you can lean into that feeling and be like, okay, well that's
Yeah.
I know how that feels, but like for me, it's a lot of small wins that I
Yeah.
do.
And that's the thing is
Um,
like it starts out with small wins and
mm,
celebrating that. But as I'm really interested in like what you mentioned there about like you don't want to feel like you're letting people down. But a question to ask yourself and anyone listening is, am I letting myself down by saying yes to this?
yeah. Or
Because how many times do you say yes to something that you're then sacrificing your own needs and
yeah,
feelings for the comfort of others?
absolutely. Or like when I was with my, I was saying to you earlier, with I'm a call with my coach on Friday, and her question is, what's the energetic cost from indecision as
Energetic
well?
cost, I love that. Yeah, the indecision thing. Because oh, we waste so
And
much
you
time.
could, well, an indecision could be in that bracket of not having that boundaried conversation and like raking over things and going round and round in your head around what should I do? How can I fit everything in? How can I do da, 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 da? And then it's not just the energetic cost doing it, but like all the kind of the energy wasted. It's not necessarily wasted, but could you have got to that decision or that point much faster? And then what would you
That's
do
where
with the time?
self-trust comes in.
What would you do with the energy that you've not wasted?
Yeah. And that what I've learned about the decision making process is when we're stuck in indecision, it's a lack of trust. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not trust in the unknown because we're making a decision that might be out of our comfort zone and is taking us down a path that we don't see clearly yet. But it's trust in yourself enough to make a decision and to be able to handle whatever
Mm,
falls from that. What
yeah.
you face on the journey after making that decision, whichever one it is. Because each decision is like we make so many choices in a day, and it's like every single one can take us closer to the person that we know we are at our core and the person that we want to become. Or maybe it's taken us back to the old version of us that felt safe and
Mm.
comfortable, but we've outgrown. And actually, on that note, I felt really called to share the card that I pulled today because when Gail pulled the card about the letting go and
Hmm.
the guilt and stuff, it was so interesting synchronicity because as soon as I got up this morning, my Sacred Rebels Oracle was speaking to me. And this is a deck that I don't use often, but I know that when it speaks to me, it's like, I've got an important message for you. And the card that
Hello.
came out, I really feel called to share with you because it ties in. I'm not going to read the whole message because some of these are like 4 pages long. We could be here all day, folks. But the first card that came out was Come to Life. I'll hold it up for anybody that's watching. Come to Life. And the message of this oracle is be alive. Don't
Mm.
imagine you can go back to sleep. You are too awake for that now. There is no falling back into old ways. If you do so, it will be short lived and won't feel the same as it used to. You may grieve this. You will certainly eventually celebrate it. You have crossed the threshold from an old way of being and an old life, and try as you might, you cannot return. It is better to let it go. Grieve if needs be, celebrate if needs be, or do both and move on into this moment. There is another adventure awaiting you now. You need a
Oh.
deeper connection to your own instincts, body, feelings, and intuition so you can receive this new calling. You can trust in it too. Embrace it, and it will embrace you.
What a cracking message.
Is that not just beautiful?
It is. And it's so, like, for us, this podcast is the next chapter. It's pushing our boundaries,
Absolutely.
like giving us the opportunity to kind of say what we want, speak our truth, help some folk along the way. If nobody listens, nobody listens, but it means I get to connect with you on a regular basis and
Exactly.
we can chat about all the stuff that we want to chat about that we used to chat about when we lived together, but we don't live together
Yeah.
anymore. So,
I know.
um, yeah, I think that's it's so true, isn't it? And like I liked what you said just before you read the card, which ties in nicely around like, are the actions taking you towards where you want to go, or are they taking you further away? And sometimes even just stopping and asking yourself that question will be like, actually, this is moving in the wrong direction. So you can, as soon
Yeah.
as you become conscious around these things and start asking yourself these questions, is your life can shift quite dramatically because you just become a little bit more focused on where you're going.
Yeah, 100%. And it's
Yeah.
a word that I think is so powerful when you use that word conscious,
Mm,
because so much of our behavior and how we live life is unconscious. And when it comes to change, it's
mm,
about having the conscious awareness of who you've been in the past and the decisions that you've made, the
yeah.
choices that you've made that have brought around certain outcomes. And if you find yourself caught in patterns or in cycles, it's because you're not doing things differently. And that's where you have to take like radical, or you get to, there's opportunity there to take radical responsibility of the choices that you make and coming back to, is this taking me in the
Yeah.
direction that I want to go? And giving yourself grace that in the situations where you choose the thing that felt comfortable or the thing that felt familiar or safe, being like, okay, I chose that and I recognize now that I chose that because it felt familiar
Mm,
and it's actually not what's good for me now. And that's not the path that I want to be on anymore. And to get onto this new path, it's going to require me to get out of that comfort zone.
mm.
It's that old saying, there's no growth in comfort, right?
There's no growth in comfort.
So
I
on that
feel
note,
like I was like, it's almost like the perfect sentence, and it wasn't even scripted.
exactly. There is no script here.
I know. I was like, that feels like a good point to end episode one.
I agree. I agree. This is
Um,
awesome. And I hope that for those who are listening have taken something away from it or feel like they know us a bit better. We didn't really deep dive into
no,
the
we
journey of
didn't.
how we met and how the last 5 years have gone.
I
But
know.
that will come. And I think that I trust that what comes out in these episodes
Yeah,
is what's meant to be shared. And hand on heart, I'm like, I'm happy with that.
me too.
So we will cover more. And if anybody has questions about stuff, then you can get in touch with us. It would be lovely to hear from you. And
Absolutely.
next episode, we do plan to talk more about our Reiki journeys and
Yeah.
energy healing and how transformational that can be.
Yep.
So in episode 2, we'll be deep diving into that topic. But
I'm just
or
snickering
that's the
because I'm like,
plan.
that's our intention. But as you might have
Yeah.
gathered, we do like to maybe we have a loose plan, but our intention for this podcast is it's conversations and
Yeah.
it's like being in circle. And sometimes you start circle with a particular intention, but something gets brought up that needs to be talked about or said. So we have a loose plan. That's our intention for episode two. It might start with Reiki. It might end somewhere else.
Yes. Come on the journey with us and find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, thank you for listening and
Thank
being
you. Thank you. Thank
here.
you. I
Um,
really hope that you've enjoyed or you've taken something away from this. But yeah, that's
Hamish
us.
says so too. We'll
Hamish
see
says
you
so
next
too.
time.
He's got to have the last word.
Absolutely.
Much love and take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get informed about future episodes. We'll see you next time.